Luke chapter 1. Since many have indeed taken in hand to set in order an account of the matters completely confirmed among us, as those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses and servants of the word delivered them to us, it seemed good to me as well, having followed up all these matters exactly from the beginning, to write to you an orderly account, most excellent Theophilus, that you might know the certainty of the words which you were taught. There was in the days of Herod, the sovereign of Yahudah, a certain priest named Zachariah, of the division of Abijah, and his wife was of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elisheba. And they were both righteous before Elohim, blamelessly walking in all the commands and righteousness of Yahuwah. And they had no child, because Elisheba was barren, and both were advanced in years. And it came to be that while he was serving as priest before Elohim, in the order of his division, according to the institute of the priesthood, he was chosen by lot to burn incense when he went into the dwelling place of Yahuwah. And the entire crowd of people was praying outside at the hour of incense. And a messenger of Yahuwah appeared to him, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zachariah saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the messenger said to him, Do not be afraid, Zachariah, for your prayer is heard, and your wife Elisheba shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Yohanan. And you shall have joy and gladness, and many shall rejoice at his birth, for he shall be great before Yahuwah, and shall drink no wine and strong drink at all. And he shall be filled with the set-apart spirit even from his mother's womb. And he shall turn many of the children of Israel to Yahuwah their Elohim. And he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Eliyahu, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the insight of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for Yahuwah. And Zachariah said to the messenger, By what shall I know this? For I am old, and my wife advanced in years. And the messenger answering said to him, I am Gabriel, who stands in the presence of Elohim, and was sent to speak to you and announce to you this good news. But see, you shall be silent and unable to speak until the day this takes place, because you did not believe my words, which shall be filled in their appointed time. And the people waited for Zachariah, and marveled at his delay in the dwelling place. And when he came out, he was unable to speak to them. And they recognized that he had seen a vision in the dwelling place, for he was beckoning to them, and remained dumb. And it came to be, as soon as the days of his service were completed, he went away to his house. And after those days his wife Elisheba conceived, and she hid herself 5 months, saying, Yahuwah has done this for me, in the days when he looked upon me, to take away my reproach among men. And in the 6th month the messenger Gabriel was sent by Elohim to a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a maiden engaged to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David, and the maiden's name was Miriam. And the messenger coming to her said, Greetings, favored one, the Master is with you. Blessed are you among women. But she was greatly disturbed at his word, and wondered what kind of greeting this was. And the messenger said to her, Do not be afraid, Miriam, for you have found favor with Elohim. And see, you shall conceive in your womb, and shall give birth to a son, and call his name Yahoshua. He shall be great, and shall be called the Son of the Most High. And Yahowah Elohim shall give him the throne of his father David. And he shall reign over the house of Yaakov forever, and there shall be no end to his reign. And Miriam said to the messenger, How shall this be, since I do not know a man? And the messenger answering said to her, The set-apart Spirit shall come upon you, and the power of the Most High shall overshadow you. And for that reason the set-apart one born of you shall be called Son of Elohim. And see, Elisheba, your relative, she has also conceived a son in her old age. And this is now the 6th month to her who was called barren. Because with Elohim no matter shall be impossible. And Miriam said, See, the female servant of Yahuwah, let it be to me according to your word. And the messenger went away from her. And Miriam arose in those days and went into the hill country with haste to a city of Yehudah, and entered into the house of Zachariah, and greeted Elisheba. And it came to be, when Elisheba heard the greeting of Miriam, that the baby leaped in her womb, and Elisheba was filled with the set-apart Spirit, and called out with a loud voice, and said, Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. And who am I, that the mother of my master should come to me? For look, when the sound of your greeting came to my ears, the baby in my womb leaped for joy. Blessed is she who believed, for that which Yahuwah has said to her shall be accomplished. And Miriam said, My being makes Yahuwah great, and my spirit has rejoiced in Elohim my Savior, because he looked on the humiliation of his female servant. For look, from now on all generations shall call me blessed. For he who is mighty has done wonders for me, and set apart is his name. And his compassion is from generation to generation to those who fear him. He did mightily with his arm. He scattered the proud in the thought of their hearts. He brought down rulers from their thrones and exalted the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good items, and the rich he has sent away empty. He sustained Yisrael, his servant, in remembrance of his compassion. He spoke to our fathers, to Abraham, and to his seed forever. And Miriam stayed with her about 3 months, and returned to her home. And the time was filled for Elisheba to give birth, and she bore a son. And her neighbors and relatives heard how Yahuwah had shown great compassion to her, and they rejoiced with her. And it came to be, on the 8th day, that they came to circumcise the child, and they were calling him by the name of his father, Zachariah. And his mother answering said, Not so, but he shall be called Yohanan. And they said to her, There is no one among your relatives who is called by this name. Then they motioned to his father what he would like him to be called. And having asked for a writing tablet, he wrote, saying, Yohanan is his name. And they all marveled. And at once his mouth was opened, and his tongue loosed, and he was speaking, praising Elohim. And fear came on all those dwelling around them. And all these matters were spoken of in all the hill country of Yehudah. And all who heard them kept them in their hearts saying, What then shall this child be? And the hand of Yahuwah was with him. And Zechariah his father was filled with his set-apart spirit, and prophesied, saying, Blessed be Yahuwah Elohim of Yisrael, for he did look upon and worked redemption for his people, and has raised up a horn of deliverance for us in the house of his servant David, as he spoke by the mouth of his set-apart prophets from of old, deliverance from our enemies and from the hand of all those hating us, to show compassion toward our fathers, and to remember his set-apart covenant, an oath which he swore to our father Abraham, to give to us, being delivered from the hand of our enemies, to serve him without fear, in set-apartness and righteousness before him all the days of our life. And you, child, shall be called prophet of the Most High, for you shall go before the face of Yahuwah to prepare his ways, to give knowledge of deliverance to his people by the forgiveness of their sins, through the tender compassion of our Elohim, with which the daybreak from on high has looked upon us, to give light to those who sit in darkness and the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace. And the child grew and became strong in spirit, and was in the deserts until the day of showing himself openly to Yisrael. Luke chapter 2. And it came to be in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus for all the world to be registered. This took place as a first registration while Quirinius was governing Syria, and all were going to be registered, each one to his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, to Yehudah, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be registered with Miriam, who was engaged to him, being pregnant. And it came to be that while they were there, the days were filled for her to give birth. And she gave birth to a firstborn son, and wrapped him up and laid him down in a feeding trough, because there was no room for them in a lodging place. And in the same country there were shepherds living out in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. And look, a messenger of Yahuwah stood before them, and the esteem of Yahuwah shone around them, and they were greatly afraid. And the messenger said to them, Do not be afraid, for look, I bring you good news of great joy, which shall be to all people. Because there was born to you today in the city of David a Savior, who is Messiah the Master. And this is a sign to you. You shall find a baby wrapped up, lying in a feeding trough. And suddenly there was with the messenger a crowd of the heavenly host, praising Elohim and saying, Esteem to Elohim in the highest, and on earth peace among men with whom he is pleased. And it came to be, when the messengers had gone away from them into the heaven, that the shepherds said to each other, Indeed, let us go to Bethlehem, and see this matter that has taken place, which the Master has made known to us. And they came in haste, and found Miriam and Joseph, and the baby lying in a feeding trough. And having seen, they made known the matter which was spoken to them concerning the child. And all those who heard marveled at what the shepherds said to them. But Miriam kept all these matters, considering them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, boasting and praising Elohim for all they had heard and seen, as it was spoken to them. And when 8 days were completed for him to be circumcised, his name was called Yahoshua, the name given by the messenger before he was conceived in the womb. And when the days of her cleansing according to the Torah of Moshe were completed, they brought him to Jerusalem to present him to Yahuwah. As it has been written in the Torah of Yahuwah, every male who opens the womb shall be called set apart to Yahuwah, and to give an offering according to what is said in the Torah of Yahuwah, a pair of turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons. And see, there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Shimron, And this man was righteous and dedicated, looking for the comforting of Israel. And the set-apart spirit was upon him. And it had been revealed to him by the set-apart spirit that he would not see death before he sees the Messiah of Yahuwah. And he came in the spirit into the set-apart place. And as the parents brought in the child Yahoshua to do for him according to the usual practice of the Torah, then he took him up in his arms and blessed Elohim and said, Now, let your servant go in peace, O Master, according to your word. For my eyes have seen your deliverance, which you have prepared before the face of all the peoples, a light for the unveiling of the Gentiles and the esteem of your people Israel. And Joseph and his mother were marveling at what was said about him. And Shimron blessed them and said to Miriam his mother, See, this one is set for a fall and rising of many in Israel, and for a sign spoken against. And a sword shall pierce through your own being also, so as to reveal the thoughts of many hearts. And there was Hannah, a prophetess, a daughter of Penuel of the tribe of Asher. She was advanced in years and had lived with a husband 7 years from her maidenhood. And she was a widow of about 84 years, who did not leave the set-apart place, but served Elohim with fastings and prayers night and day. And she, coming in at that moment, gave thanks to Yahuwah, and spoke of him to all who were waiting for redemption in Jerusalem. And when they had accomplished all matters according to the Torah of Yahuwah, they returned to Galilee, to their city Nazareth. And the child grew and became strong in spirit, being filled with wisdom, and the favor of Elohim was upon him. And his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the festival of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem according to the practice of the festival. When they had accomplished the days as they returned, the child Yahushua stayed behind in Jerusalem, and his parents did not know it. But thinking he was in the company, they went a day's journey, and were seeking him among the relatives and friends. And not having found him, they returned to Jerusalem seeking him. And it came to be, after 3 days, that they found him in the set-apart place, sitting in the midst of the teachers, both listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. And having seen him, they were amazed. And his mother said to him, Son, why have you done this to us? See, your father and I have been anxiously seeking you. And he said to them, Why were you seeking me? Did you not know that I had to be in the matters of my father? But they did not understand the words which he spoke to them. And he went down with them and came to Nazareth, and was subject to them. But his mother kept all these matters in her heart. And Yahushua increased in wisdom and stature, and in favor with Elohim and men. Luke chapter 3. And in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, when Pontius Pilate was governor of Yehuda, and Herod's district ruler of Galilee, and his brother Philip district ruler of Yetur, and the country of Trachonitis, and Lucanius district ruler of Abilene, Hannah and Caiaphas being high priests. The word of Elohim came to Yohanan, the son of Zechariah, in the wilderness. And he went into all the neighborhood of the Jordan, proclaiming an immersion of repentance for the forgiveness of sins, as it has been written in the book of the words of Yeshayahu the prophet, saying, A voice of one crying in the wilderness, Prepare the way of Yahuwah, make his paths straight. Every valley shall be filled, and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall become straight, and the rough become smooth ways, and all flesh shall see the deliverance of Elohim. He said therefore to the crowds that came out to be immersed by him, Brood of adders, Who warned you to flee from the wrath to come? Therefore bear fruit worthy of repentance, and do not begin to say to yourselves, We have Abraham as our father. For I say to you that Elohim is able to raise up children to Abraham from these stones. And even now the axe is laid to the root of the trees. Therefore every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. And the crowds asked him, saying, What then shall we do? And answering he said to them, Let him who has 2 undergarments share with him who has none, and let him who has food do likewise. And tax collectors also came to be immersed, and said to him, Teacher, what shall we do? And he said to them, Collect no more than what is appointed for you. And soldiers also asked him, saying, And what shall we do? And he said to them, Do not intimidate anyone or accuse falsely, and be satisfied with your pay. But as the people were in expectation, and all were reasoning in their hearts about Yohanan, whether he was the Messiah or not, Yohanan answered, saying to them all, I indeed immerse you in water, but one mightier than I is coming, whose sandal straps I am not worthy to loosen. He shall immerse you in the set-apart spirit and fire. His winnowing fork is in his hand, and he shall thoroughly cleanse his threshing floor, and gather the wheat into his storehouse. But the chaff he shall burn with unquenchable fire. And urging with many other words, he brought the good news to the people. And Herod, the district ruler, being reproved by him concerning Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, and for all the wicked deeds which Herod did, added this also to them all, he locked up Yohanan in prison. And it came to be, when all the people were immersed, Yahoshua also being immersed and praying, the heaven was opened, and the set-apart spirit descended in bodily form like a dove upon him, and a voice came from heaven saying, You are my Son, the beloved, and you I did delight. And when Yahushua himself began, he was about 30 years of age, being as reckoned by law, son of Joseph of Eli, of Mattiyahu, of Levi, of Melchi, of Yana, of Joseph, of Mattiyahu, of Amots, of Nahum, of Hesla and Noga, of Matthat, of Mattiyahu, of Shema, of Joseph, of Yehuda, of Yohanan, of Raphiah, of Zerubbabel, of Shealtiel, of Nari, of Melchi, of Adda, of Korsam, of Elmadam, of of Yahushua, of Eliezer, of Yorim, of Mattiyahu, of Levi, of Shimron, of Yehuda, of Joseph, of Jonah, of Eliakim, of Melea, of Mina, of Mattatha, of Nathan, of Dawid, of Yishai, of Obed, of Boaz, of Salmon, of Nashon, of Aminadab, of Ram, of Heshram, of Peretz, of Yehuda, of Yaakov, of Yishak, of Abraham, of Terah, of Nahor, of Serug, of Ruah, of Peleg, of Eber, of Shelah, of Canaan, of Arpachshad, of Shem, of Noah, of Lamech, of Methuselah, of Hanok, of Yared, of Mahalalel, of Canaan, of Enosh, of Sheth, of Adam, of Elohim. Luke chapter 4. And Yahushua, being filled with a set-apart spirit, returned from the Jordan, and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, being tried for 40 days by the devil. And in those days he did not eat at all. And afterwards, when they had ended, he was hungry. And the devil said to him, If you are the Son of Elohim, command this stone to become bread. But Yahoshua answered him, saying, It has been written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word of Elohim. And the devil, taking him up on a high mountain, showed him all the reigns of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said to him, All this authority I shall give you, and their esteem, for it has been delivered to me, and I give it to whomever I wish. If then you worship before me, all shall be yours. And Yahushua answering him said, Get behind me, Satan, for it has been written, You shall worship Yahuwah your Elohim, and him only you shall serve. And he brought him to Jerusalem, set him on the edge of the set-apart place, and said to him, If you are the Son of Elohim, throw yourself down from here, for it has been written, He shall command his messengers concerning you to guard over you, and in their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. And Yahushua answering said to him, It has been said, You shall not try Yahuwah your Elohim. And when the devil had ended every trial, he went away from him until a convenient time. And Yahushua returned in the power of the Spirit to Galilee, and news of him went out through all the surrounding country. And he was teaching in their congregations, being praised by all. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and according to his practice, he went into the congregation on the Sabbath day, and stood up to read. And the scroll of the prophet Yeshayahu was handed to him. And having unrolled the scroll, he found the place where it was written, The Spirit of Yahuwah is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring the good news to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim release to the captives, and recovery of sight to the blind, to send away crushed ones with a release, to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahuwah. And having rolled up the scroll, he gave it back to the attendant and sat down. And the eyes of all in the congregation were fixed upon him. And he began to say to them, Today the scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing. And all were bearing witness to him, and marveled at the pleasant words that came out of his mouth. And they said, Is this not the son of Joseph? And he said to them, No doubt you shall say this proverb to me, Physician, heal yourself. Whatever we have heard being done in Capernaum, do also here in your country. And he said, Truly I say to you, no prophet is accepted in his own country. But truly I say to you, many widows were in Israel in the days of Eliyahu, when the heaven was shut up for 3 years and 6 months, and there was a great scarcity of food in all the land. And Eliyahu was sent to none of them, but to Zarephath of Sidon, to a woman, a widow. And many lepers were in Israel in the time of Elisha the prophet, and none of them was cleansed except Naaman the Aramean. And all those in the congregation, when they heard this, were filled with wrath. And rising up, they drove him out of the city, and brought him to the brow of the hill on which their city was built, in order to throw him down. But he, passing through the midst of them, went away. And he came down to Capernaum, a city of Galilee, and was teaching them on the Sabbaths. And they were astonished at his teaching, for his word was with authority. And in the congregation was a man having a spirit of an unclean demon. And he cried out with a loud voice, saying, Ha! What have we to do with you, Yahoshua of Nazareth? Did you come to destroy us? I know you, who you are, the set-apart one of Elohim. And Yahushua rebuked him, saying, Be silenced, and come out of him. And when the demon had thrown him in their midst, it came out of him without hurting him. And astonishment came on all, and they spoke to each other, saying, What is this word that with authority and power he commands the unclean spirits, and they come out? And the report about him went out into every place of the neighborhood. And rising up from the congregation, he went into the house of Shimon. But the mother-in-law of Shimon was sick with a severe inflammation, and they asked him concerning her. And standing over her, he rebuked the inflammation, and it left her, and instantly rising up, she served them. And when the sun was setting, all who had any who were sick with various diseases brought them to him, and he laid his hands on each one of them and healed them. And also demons were coming out of many, crying out and saying, You are the Messiah, the Son of Elohim. And rebuking them, he did not allow them to speak, for they knew that he was the Messiah. And when day came, he went out and proceeded to a lonely place. But the crowds were seeking him and came to him, and tried to keep him from leaving them. And he said to them, To the other cities I also have to bring the good news, the reign of Elohim, because for this I have been sent. And he was proclaiming in the congregations of Galilee. Luke chapter 5. And it came to be, while the crowd was pressing upon him to hear the word of Elohim, that he stood by the lake of Gennesaret. And he saw 2 boats standing by the lake, but the fishermen had gone from them, and were washing their nets. And entering into one of the boats, which belonged to Shimon, he asked him to pull away a little from the land. And he sat down and was teaching the crowds from the boat. And when he ceased speaking, he said to Shimon, Put out into the deep, and let down your nets for a catch. And Shimon answering said to him, Master, we have toiled all night and caught none. But at your word I shall let down the net. And when they did so, they caught a great number of fish, and their net was breaking. And they mentioned to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both the boats, so that they were sinking. And when Shimon Kepha saw it, he fell down at the knees of Yahushua, saying, Depart from me, for I am a man, a sinner, O Master. For astonishment had seized him, and all those with him, at the catch of fish which they took. So too were Jacob and Johanan, the sons of Zebediah, who were partners with Shimon. Then Yahushua said to Shimon, Do not fear, from now on you shall catch men. And having brought the boats to land, they left and followed him. And it came to be, when he was in a certain city, that a man covered with leprosy saw Yahushua. And he fell on his face and begged him, saying, Master, if you desire, you are able to cleanse me. And he stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, I desire it, be cleansed. And immediately the leprosy left him. And he ordered him to say it to no one, but go and show yourself to the priest, and make an offering for your cleansing as a witness to them, as Moshe commanded. And the news about him was spreading even more, and large crowds were coming together to hear and to be healed by him of his sicknesses. But he was often withdrawing himself to lonely places and praying. And on a certain day it came to be, as he was teaching, that there were Pharisees and teachers of the Torah sitting by, who had come out of every village of Galilee, Yehudah, and Jerusalem. And the power of Yahuwah was there to heal them. And see, men brought on a bed a man who were paralyzed, and they were seeking to bring him in and lay him before him. But having found no way to bring him in because of the crowd, they went up on the housetop and let him down with his bed through the tiles into the midst before Yahoshua. And having seen their belief, he said to him, Man, your sins are forgiven you. And the scribes and the Pharisees began to reason, saying, Who is this who speaks blasphemies? Who is able to forgive sins except Elohim alone? And Yahushua, knowing their thoughts, answering, said to them, Why are you reasoning in your hearts? Which is easier to say, Your sins are forgiven you, or to say, Rise up and walk? But in order for you to know that the Son of Adam possesses authority on earth to forgive sins, he said to the man who was paralyzed, I say to you, Rise, take up your bed and go to your house. And at once, having risen up before them, he took up what he had been lying on, and went away to his house, praising Elohim. And astonishment seized them all, and they praised Elohim and were filled with fear, saying, We have seen extraordinary feats today. And after this he went out and saw a tax collector named Levi, sitting at the tax office, and said to him, Follow me. And he, having left all, rose up and followed him. And Levi made a great feast for him in his house, and there were a great number of tax collectors and others who sat down with them. And the Pharisees and their scribes grumbled against his taught ones, saying, Why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners? And Yahushua answering said to them, Those who are well do not need a physician, but those who are sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. And they said to him, Why do the taught ones of Yohanan fast often and make prayers, and likewise those of the Pharisees, but yours eat and drink? And he said to them, Are you able to make the friends of the bridegroom fast, while the bridegroom is with them? But days shall come when the bridegroom is taken away from them. Then they shall fast in those days. And he also spoke a parable to them. No one puts a piece from a fresh garment on an old one. Otherwise the fresh one makes a tear, and also the piece that was taken out of the fresh one does not match the old. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise the new wine shall burst the wineskin and run out, and the wineskins shall be ruined. But new wine is put into fresh wineskins, and both are preserved. And no one, having drunk old wine, immediately desires new wine, for he says, The old is better. Luke chapter 6. And it came to be on a Sabbath that he went through grain fields, and his taught ones were plucking the heads of grain, and were eating, rubbing them in the hands. And some of the Pharisees said to them, Why are you doing what is not right to do on the Sabbath? And Yahushua answering them said, Have you not read what David did when he was hungry, he and those who were with him? How he went into the house of Elohim, took and ate the shewbread, and also gave some to those with him, which is not right for any but the priest to eat? And he said to them, The Son of Adam is master of the Sabbath. And it also came to be on another Sabbath that he entered into the congregation and taught, and there was a man whose right hand was withered. And the scribes and Pharisees were watching him closely, whether he would heal on the Sabbath, for them to find an accusation against him. And he knew their thoughts, and said to the man who had the withered hand, Rise and stand in the midst. And he arose up and stood. Then Yahushua said to them, I ask you, is it right to do good on the Sabbath, or to do evil, to save life, or to destroy it? And looking around at them all, he said to the man, Stretch out your hand. And he did so, and his hand was restored sound as the other. But they were filled with folly, and were speaking with one another what they should do to Yahushua. And in those days it came to be that he went out to the mountain to pray, and was spending the night in prayer to Elohim. And when it became day, he called near his taught ones, and chose from them 12, whom he also named emissaries. Shimon, whom he also named Kepha, and his brother Andrea, Jacob and Johanan, Philip and Bartholomew, Mattathias and Thomas, Jacob the son of Alphaeus, and Shimon, the one called the Ardent One, Yehuda the son of Jacob, and Yehuda from Keriot, who also became the betrayer. And coming down with them, he stood on a level place with a crowd of his taught ones, and a great number of people from all Yehuda and Jerusalem, and from the coast country of the Sidons, Sar and Sidon, who came to hear him, and to be healed of their diseases, and those who were troubled with unclean spirits, and they were healed. And all the crowd were seeking to touch him, for power went out from him, and healing them all. And he lifted up his eyes toward his taught ones, said, Blessed are the poor, because yours is the reign of Elohim. Blessed are you who hunger now, because you shall be satisfied. Blessed are you who weep now, because you shall laugh. Blessed are you when men shall hate you, and when they shall cut you off, and shall reproach you, and cast out your name as wicked for the sake of the Son of Adam. Rejoice in that day, and leap for joy, for look, your reward is great in the heaven, for that is how their fathers treated the prophets. But woe to you who are rich, because you are receiving your comfort. Woe to you who have been filled, because you shall hunger. Woe to you who are laughing now, because you shall mourn and weep. Woe to you when all men speak well of you, for thus their fathers did to the false prophets. But I say to you who are hearing, love your enemies, do good to those hating you, bless those cursing you, and pray for those insulting you. And to him who hits you on the one cheek, offer the other also. And from him who takes away your outer garment, do not withhold the inner garment either. And give to everyone who asks of you. And from him who takes away what is yours, do not ask it back. And as you wish men should do to you, you also do to them in the same way. And if you love those loving you, what favor have you? For sinners too love those loving them. And if you do good to those doing good to you, what favor have you? For even sinners do the same. And if you lend to those from whom you expect to receive back, what favor have you? For even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much back. Rather love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting none in return. And your reward shall be great, and you shall be sons of the Most High, because he is kind to the thankless and wicked ones. Therefore be compassionate as your Father also is compassionate. And do not judge, and you shall not be judged at all. Condemn not, and you shall not be condemned at all. Forgive, and you shall be forgiven. Give, and it shall be given to you. A good measure, pressed down and shaken together, running over, shall be put into your lap. For with the same measure with which you measure, it shall be measured back to you. And he spoke a parable to them. Is a blind able to lead a blind? Shall they not both fall into a pit? A taught one is not above his teacher, but everyone perfected shall be like his teacher. And why do you see the splinter in your brother's eye, but are not aware of the plank in your own eye? Or how are you able to say to your brother, Brother, let me take out the splinter that is in your eye, not seeing the plank in your own eye. Hypocrite! First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you shall see clearly to take out the splinter that is in your brother's eye. For a good tree does not yield rotten fruit, nor does a rotten tree yield good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit. For they do not gather figs from thorns, nor do they gather grapes from a bramble bush. The good man brings forth what is good out of the good treasure of his heart, and the wicked man brings forth what is wicked out of the wicked treasure of his heart. For out of the overflow of the heart his mouth speaks. But why do you call me Master, Master, and do not do what I say? Everyone who is coming to me and is hearing my words and is doing them, I shall show you whom he is like. He is like a man building a house, who dug deep and laid a foundation on the rock. And when a flood came, the stream burst against that house, but was unable to shake it, for it was founded on the rock. But the one hearing and not doing is like a man who built a house on the earth without a foundation, against which the stream burst, and immediately it fell, and the ruin of that house was great. Luke chapter 7. And when he completed all his words in the hearing of the people, he went into Capharnaum, and a certain captain's servant, who was valuable to him, was sick and about to die. And hearing about Yahoshua, he sent elders of the Yahudim to him, asking him to come and heal his servant. And when they came to Yahoshua, they begged him earnestly, saying, He is worthy for you to grant this to him, for he loves our nation, and has built the congregation for us. So Yahoshua went with them. However, he was not far from the house, when the captain sent friends to him, saying to him, Master, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy that you should come under my roof. For this reason I did not even think myself worthy to come to you. But say a word, and my servant shall be healed. For I too am a man appointed under authority, having soldiers under me. And I say to one, Go, and he goes, and to another, Come, and he comes, and to my servant, Do this, and he does it. And when Yahushua heard this, he marveled at him, and turned around and said to the crowd that followed him, I say to you, not even in Israel have I found such great belief. And those who were sent, returning to the house, found the servant who had been sick in good health. And it came to be the next day that he went unto a city called Naim, and many of his taught ones went with him, and a large crowd. And see, as he came near the gate of the city, a dead man was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and a large crowd from the city was with her. And when the master saw her, he had compassion on her, and said to her, Do not weep. And coming near, he touched the bier, and those bearing it stood still. And he said, Young man, I say to you, arise. And he who was dead sat up, and began to speak. And he gave him to his mother. And fear seized all, and they praised Elohim, saying, A great prophet has been raised up among us, and Elohim has visited his people. And this news about him went out in all Yehudah and all the neighborhood, and the taught ones of Yohanan reported to him about all this. And Yohanan, calling two of his taught ones near, sent to Yahushua, saying, Are you the coming one, or should we look for another? And coming to him, the men said, Yohanan the Immerser has sent us to you, saying, Are you the coming one, or should we look for another? And in the same hour he healed many of diseases and afflictions and wicked spirits, and he gave sight to many blind ones. And Yahushua answering said to them, Go, report to Yohanan what you have seen and heard. Blind receive sight, lame do walk, Lepers are cleansed, deaf do hear, dead are raised, the good news is brought to the poor. And blessed is he who shall not stumble in me. And when the messengers of Yohanan had left, he began to speak to the crowds concerning Yohanan. What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken by the wind? But what did you go out to see? A man dressed in soft garments? Look, those who are splendidly dressed and living in luxury are in the houses of sovereigns. But what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yea, I say to you, and more than a prophet. This is he concerning whom it has been written, See, I send my messenger before your face, who shall prepare your way before you. For I say to you, among those born of women there is not a greater prophet than Yohanan the Immerser, but he who is least in the reign of Elohim is greater than he. And all the people, even the tax collectors, when they heard, declared Elohim righteous, having been immersed with the immersion of Yohanan. But the Pharisees and those learned in the Torah rejected the counsel of Elohim for themselves, not having been immersed by him. And the Master said, To what then shall I compare the men of this generation, and what are they like? They are like children sitting in the marketplace and calling to each other, saying, We played the flute for you, and you did not dance. We lamented for you, and you did not weep. For Yohanan the Immerser came neither eating bread nor drinking wine, and you say, He has a demon. The son of Adam has come eating and drinking, and you say, Look, a man, a glutton, and a wine drinker, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. And wisdom is declared right by all her children. And one of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him. And he went into the Pharisee's house and sat down to eat. And see, a woman in the city who was a sinner, when she knew that Yahoshua was set at the table in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of perfume. And standing behind at his feet weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears, and wiping them with the hair of her head, and was kissing his feet, and anointing them with the perfume. And when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he spoke to himself, saying, This one, if he were a prophet, would know who and what kind of woman this is who is touching him, for she is a sinner. And Yahoshua answering said to him, Shimon, I have somewhat to say to you. And he said, Teacher, say it. A certain creditor had 2 debtors. The one owed 500 pieces of silver, and the other 50. And when they were unable to repay, he forgave them both. Which of them then shall love him more? And Shimon answering said, I suppose the one whom he forgave more. And he said to him, You have rightly judged. And turning to the woman, he said to Shimon, Do you see this woman? I came into your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has wetted my feet with her tears, and wiped them with the hair of her head. You gave me no kiss, but she has not ceased to kiss my feet since the time I came in. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she anointed my feet with perfume. Therefore I say to you, her many sins have been forgiven, because she loved much. But to whom little is forgiven, he loves little. And he said to her, Your sins have been forgiven. And those who were sitting at the table with him began to say among themselves, Who is this who even forgives sins? And he said to the woman, Your belief has saved you. Go in peace. Luke chapter 8. And it came to be afterward that he went through every city and village, proclaiming and bringing the good news of the reign of Elohim. And the 12 were with him, and certain women who were healed of wicked spirits and sicknesses, Miriam called from Magdala, out of whom had come 7 demons, and Johanan, the wife of Cuza, manager of Herod's, and Shoshana, and many others who provided for him from their resources. And when a large crowd had gathered and those who were coming to him from every city, he spoke by a parable. A sower went out to sow his seed, and as he sowed, some indeed fell by the wayside, and it was trodden down, and the birds of the heaven devoured it. And other fell on rock, and when it grew up, it withered because it had no moisture. And other fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up with it and choked it. And other fell on the good soil, and grew up, and yielded a crop 100-fold. Having said this, he cried, He who has ears to hear, let him hear. And his taught ones were asking him, saying, What does this parable mean? And he said, To you it has been given to know the secrets of the reign of Elohim, but to the rest in parables, that seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not understand. And this is the parable. The seed is the word of Elohim, and those by the wayside are the ones who hear. Then the devil comes and takes away the word from their hearts, lest having believed they should be saved. And those on the rock are those who, when they hear, receive the word with joy. And these have no root, who believe for a while, and in time of trial fall away. And that which fell among thorns are those who, when they have heard, go out and are choked with worries and riches and pleasures of life, and bring no fruit to perfection. And that on the good soil are those who, having heard the word with a noble and good heart, retain it and bear fruit with endurance. And no one, having lit a lamp, covers it with a vessel or puts it under a bed, but he puts it on a lampstand, so that those coming in see the light. For whatever is hidden shall be revealed, and whatever is secret shall be known and come to light. Therefore take heed how you hear. For whoever possesses, to him more shall be given, and whoever does not possess, even what he thinks he possesses, shall be taken from him. And his mother and brothers came to him, and were unable to get to him because of the crowd. And it was reported to him, saying, Your mother and your brothers are standing outside, wishing to see you. And he answering said to them, My mother and my brothers are those who are hearing the word of Elohim and doing it. And on a certain day it came to be that he entered into a boat with his taught ones, and he said to them, Let us go over to the other side of the lake. And they set out, and as they were sailing, he fell asleep, and a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling up and were in danger. And they came to him and woke him up, saying, Master, Master, we are perishing. And he awoke and rebuked the wind and the raging of the water, and they ceased, and there came a calm. And he said to them, Where is your belief? And they were afraid and marveled, saying to one another, Who then is this, that he even commands the winds and water, and they obey him? And they sailed to the country of the Gadarenes, which is opposite Galilee. And as he went out unto the land, he was met by a certain man from the city who had demons for a long time, and he wore no garments, and he was not living in a house, but in the tombs. And when he saw Yahoshua, he cried out, fell down before him, and with a loud voice said, What have I to do with you, Yahoshua, son of the Most High Elohim? I beg you, do not torture me. For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man, for it had seized him many times, and he was bound with chains and shackles. Being guarded and breaking the bonds, he was driven by the demon into the lonely places. And Yahushua asked him, saying, What is your name? And he said, Legion, because many demons had entered into him. And they were begging him that he would not command them to go out into the bottomless pit. and a herd of many pigs was feeding there on the mountain. And they begged him to allow them to go into them, and he allowed them. And the demons, having gone out of the man, entered into the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep place into the lake and drowned. And when those feeding them saw what had taken place, they fled and reported it in the city and in the country. So they came out to see what had taken place, and came to Yahoshua, and found the man from whom the demons had gone out sitting at the feet of Yahoshua, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who had seen it reported to them how he who had been possessed by demons was healed. And all the crowd of the neighborhood of the Gadarenes asked him to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. And he entered into the boat and returned. And the man from whom the demons had gone out was begging him to be with him. But Yahushua sent him away, saying, Go back to your house and relate what Elohim has done for you. And he went away, proclaiming through all the city what Yahushua did for him. And it came to be, when Yahushua returned, that the crowd gladly received him, for they were all looking for him. And see, there came a man whose name was Yair, and he was a ruler of the congregation, and falling down at the feet of Yahushua, he was calling upon him to come to his house, because he had an only daughter about 12 years of age, and she was dying. And as he went, the crowds thronged upon him. And a woman having a flow of blood for 12 years, who, having spent all her livelihood on physicians, was unable to be healed by any, came from behind and touched the tzitzit of his garment, and immediately her flow of blood stopped. And Yahushua said, Who touched me? And when all denied it, Kepha and those with him said, Master, the crowds throng you and press upon you, and you say, Who touched me? But Yahushua said, Somebody did touch me, for I knew power went out from me. And the woman, seeing that she was not hidden, came trembling and falling down before him. She declared to him in the presence of all the people why she had touched him, and how she was healed immediately. And he said to her, Take courage, daughter. Your belief has healed you. Go in peace. While he was still speaking, someone came from the ruler of the congregation's house, saying to him, Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher any further. And Yahushua, having heard, answered him, saying, Do not be afraid, only believe, and she shall be healed. And coming into the house, he allowed no one to go in except Kepha and Yaakov and Yohanan, and the girl's father and mother. And they were all weeping and mourning for her. And he said, Do not weep. She is not dead, but sleeps. And they were laughing at him, knowing that she was dead. But taking her by the hand, he called, saying, Child, arise. And her spirit returned, and she rose up immediately. And he directed that she be given food to eat. And her parents were astonished, but he ordered them to say to no one what had taken place. Luke chapter 9. And having called his 12 taught ones together, he gave them power and authority over all demons, and to heal diseases. And he sent them to proclaim the reign of Elohim, and to heal the sick. And he said to them, Take no matter at all for the journey, neither staff, nor bag, nor bread, nor money, neither have 2 undergarments. And whatever house you enter, stay there, and go out from there. And as for those who do not receive you, when you go out of that city, shake off the dust from your feet as a witness against them. And going out, they went through the villages, bringing the good news and healing everywhere. And Herod, this district ruler, heard of all that was done by him, and was perplexed, because it was said by some that Yohanan had been raised from the dead, and by some that Eliyahu had appeared, and by others that one of the old prophets has risen up. And Herod said, Yohanan I have beheaded, but who is this of whom I hear such reports? And he was seeking to see him. And the emissaries, when they had returned, related to him all that they had done. And he took them, and they withdrew by themselves to a city called Bethsaida. And when the crowds knew it, they followed him. And having received them, he was speaking to them about the reign of Elohim, and healed those who had need of healing. And as the day began to decline, the 12 came and said to him, Send the crowd away, that going into the surrounding villages and country, they might lodge and get food, because here we are in a lonely place. But he said to them, You give them to eat. And they said, We have no more than 5 loaves and 2 fishes, unless we go and buy food for all these people. For there were about 5,000 men. And he said to his taught ones, Make them sit down in groups of 50. And they did so, and made them all sit down. And taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, having looked up to the heaven, he blessed and broke them, and gave them to the taught ones to set before the crowd. So they all ate and were satisfied. And 12 baskets of the broken pieces were picked up by them. And it came to be, as he was alone praying, the taught ones were with him, and he asked them, saying, Who do the crowds say that I am? And they answering said, Yohanan the Immerser, but others Eliyahu, and others say that one of the old prophets has risen up. And he said to them, And you, who do you say I am? And Kepha answering said, The Messiah of Elohim. And strictly warning them, he commanded them to say this to no one, saying, The son of Adam has to suffer much, and to be rejected by the elders and chief priests and scribes, and to be killed, and to be raised the 3rd day. And he said to them all, If anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his stake daily and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life shall lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake shall save it. For what is a man profited if he gains all the world and is himself destroyed or lost? For whoever is ashamed of me and my words, of him the son of Adam shall be ashamed, when he comes in his esteem, and in his Father's, and of the set-apart messengers. But truly I say to you, there are some standing here who shall not taste death at all till they see the reign of Elohim. And it came to be about 8 days after these words, taking with him Kepha and Yohanan and Yaakov, he went up to the mountain to pray. And it came to be, as he prayed, the appearance of his face changed, and his garment dazzling white. And see, 2 men were talking with him, who were Moshe and Eliyahu, who, having appeared in esteem, spoke of his death, which he was about to complete at Jerusalem. But Kepha and those with him were heavy with sleep, and having awakened, they saw his esteem and the 2 men standing with him. And it came to be, as they were parting from him, Kepha said to Yahoshua, Master, it is good for us to be here, and let us make 3 booths, one for you, and one for Moshe, and one for Eliyahu, not knowing what he said. And as he was saying this, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were afraid as they entered the cloud. And a voice came out of the cloud, saying, This is my son, the beloved, hear him. And when the voice had spoken, Yahushua was found alone. And they were silent, and reported to no one in those days any of what they had seen. And it came to be on the next day, when they came down from the mountain, that a large crowd met him. And see, a man from the crowd cried out, saying, Teacher, I beg you, look at my son, for he is my only child. And see, a spirit seizes him, and he suddenly cries out, and it convulses him with foaming, and scarcely leaves him, bruising him. And I begged your taught ones to cast it out, but they were unable. And Yahoshua answering said, O generation, unbelieving and perverse, how long shall I be with you and put up with you? Bring your son here. And as he was still coming, the demon threw him down in convulsions. And Yahushua rebuked the unclean spirit and healed the child and gave him back to his father. And they were all amazed at the greatness of Elohim. And while all were marveling at all that Yahushua did, he said to his taught ones, Lay up in your ears these words, for the son of Adam is about to be delivered into the hands of men. But they did not understand this saying, and it was veiled from them so that they did not perceive it, and they were afraid to ask him about this saying. And a reasoning arose among them who might be the greater of them. And Yahushua, having seen the reasoning of their heart, took a little child and placed him by his side, and said to them, Whoever receives this little child in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives him who sent me. For he who is least among you all, he shall be great. And Yohanan answering said, Master, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him because he does not follow with us. But Yahushua said to him, Do not forbid him, for he who is not against us is for us. And it came to be when the days of his taking up were being completed, even he set his face to go to Jerusalem. And he sent messengers ahead of him. And they went and entered into a village of the Shomronites to prepare for him. And they did not receive him, because his face was set for the journey to Jerusalem. And his taught ones, Jacob and Yohanan, seeing it, said, Master, do you wish us to command fire to come down from the heaven and destroy them, as also Eliyahu did? And having turned, he rebuked them and said, You do not know of what spirit you are. For the Son of Adam did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. And they went on to another village. And it came to be, as they journeyed on the way, that someone said to him, Master, I shall follow you wherever you go. And Yahushua said to him, The foxes have holes, and the birds of the heaven nest, but the Son of Adam has nowhere to lay his head. And he said to another, Follow me. But he said, Master, let me first go and bury my father. And Yahushua said to him, Let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and announce the reign of Elohim. And another also said, Master, I shall follow you, but let me first say goodbye to those in my house. But Yahushua said to him, No one, having put his hand to the plow and looking back, is fit for the reign of Elohim. Luke chapter 10. And after this the master appointed 70 others, and sent them 2 by 2 ahead of him into every city and place where he himself was about to go. Then he said to them, The harvest indeed is great, but the workers are few. Therefore pray the master of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest. Go, see, I send you out as lambs into the midst of wolves. Do not take a purse, nor a bag, nor sandals, and greet no one along the way. And whatever house you enter, first say peace to this house. And if indeed a son of peace is there, your peace shall rest on it. And if not, it shall return to you. And stay in the same house, eating and drinking whatever with them, for the laborer is worthy of his wages. Do not move from house to house. And into whatever city you enter, and they receive you, eat whatever is placed before you, and heal the sick there, and say to them, The reign of Elohim has come near to you. And into whatever city you enter, and they do not receive you, go out into its street and say, even the dust of your city which clings to you, we wipe off against you. But know this, that the reign of Elohim has come near to you. And I say to you that it shall be more bearable for Sidon in that day than for that city. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the miracles which were done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago, sitting in sackcloth and ashes. But it shall be more bearable for Tyre and Sidon at the judgment than for you. And you, Kepha-Nahum, who are exalted to the heavens, shall be brought down to the grave. He who hears you hears me. He who rejects you rejects me. And he who rejects me rejects him who sent me. And the 70 returned with joy, saying, Master, even the demons are subject to us in your name. And he said to them, I saw Satan fallen out of the heaven as lightning. See, I give you the authority to trample on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and none at all shall hurt you. But do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rather rejoice because your names have been written in the heavens. In that hour Yahoshua exalted in the spirit and said, I praise you, Father, Master of the heaven and of the earth, that you have hidden these matters from clever and learned ones, and did reveal them to babes. Yea, Father, because thus it was well-pleasing in your sight. All has been delivered to me by my Father, and no one knows who the Son is except the Father, and who the Father is except the Son, and he to whom the Son wishes to reveal him. And turning to his taught ones, he said separately, Blessed are the eyes that see what you see. For I say to you that many prophets and sovereigns have wished to see what you see and have not seen it, and to hear what you hear and have not heard it. And see, a certain one learned in the Torah stood up, trying him and saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit everlasting life? And he said to him, What has been written in the Torah? How do you read it? And he answering said, You shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And he said to him, You have answered rightly. Do this, and you shall live. But he, wishing to declare himself righteous, said to Yahushua, And who is my neighbor? And replying, Yahushua said, A certain man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and fell among robbers, who both stripping and beating him went away, leaving him half dead. And by coincidence a certain priest was going down that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And likewise a Levite also, when he came to the place, and seeing, passed by on the other side. But a certain Shamaronite journeying came upon him, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him. And he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. And having placed him on his own beast, he brought him to an inn and looked after him. And going out on the next day, he took out 2 pieces of silver, gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, Look after him, and whatever more you spend, I shall repay you when I return. Who then of these 3 do you think was neighbor to him who fell among the robbers? And he said, He who showed compassion on him. Then Yahushua said to him, Go and do likewise. And it came to be as they went, that he entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house. And she had a sister called Miriam, who also sat at the feet of Yahushua and heard his word. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and coming up she said, Master, are you not concerned that my sister has left me to serve alone? Speak to her then to help me. And Yahushua answering said to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many matters, but one only is necessary, and Miriam has chosen the good portion, which shall not be taken away from her. Luke chapter 11. And it came to be while he was praying in a certain place, as he ceased, one of his taught ones said to him, Master,
teach us to pray, as Yohanan also taught his taught ones. And he said to them, when you pray, say, Our Father in the heavens, let your name be set apart. Let your reign come. Let your desire be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us day by day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins. For we also forgive everyone who is indebted to us, and do not lead us into trial, but rescue us from the wicked one. And he said to them, which of you shall have a friend, and go to him at midnight, and say to him, Friend, lend me 3 loaves, since a friend of mine has come to me on his journey, and I do not have food to set before him? Then the one inside answering says, Do not trouble me. The door is already locked, and my children with me are in bed. I am unable to get up and give to you. I say to you, if he does not get up and give to him because he is his friend, he shall get up and give him as many as he needs because of his persistence. And I say to you, ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened to you. For everyone asking receives, and he who is seeking finds. And to him who is knocking it shall be opened. And what father among you, whose son asks for bread, shall give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, shall give him a snake instead of a fish? Or if he asks for an egg, shall give him a scorpion? If you then, being wicked, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more shall your Father from heaven give the set-apart Spirit to those asking him? And he was casting out a demon, and it was dumb. And it came to be, when the demon had gone out, that the dumb spoke, and the crowds marveled. But some of them said, He casts out demons by Beelzebub, the ruler of the demons. And others, trying him, were seeking from him a sign from heaven. And he, knowing their thoughts, said to them, Every reign divided against itself is laid waste, and a house divided against a house falls. So if Satan also is divided against himself, how shall his reign stand? Because you say, I cast out demons by Beelzebub. Now if I cast out demons by Beelzebub, by whom do your sons cast them out? Because of this they shall be your judges. But if I cast out demons by the finger of Elohim, then the reign of Elohim has come upon you. When a strong man, having been well armed, watches over his own court, his possessions are in peace. But when a stronger than he comes upon him and overcomes him, he takes from him all his armor in which he trusted, and divides his booty. He who is not with me is against me, and he who does not gather with me scatters. When the unclean spirit goes out of a man, he goes through dry places seeking rest, and finding none, he says, I shall return to my house from which I came. And when he comes, he finds it swept and decorated. Then he goes and takes with him 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter and dwell there. And the last estate of that man becomes worse than the first. And it came to be, as he was saying this, a certain woman from the crowd raised her voice and said to him, Blessed is the womb that bore you, and the breast which you sucked. But he said, Blessed rather are those hearing the word of Elohim and watching over it. And while the crowds were thronging, he began to say, This generation is wicked. It seeks a sign, and no sign shall be given to it except the sign of Jonah the prophet. For as Jonah became a sign to the Ninevites, so also the son of Adam shall be to this generation. The sovereignness of the south shall rise up in the judgment with the men of this generation, and shall condemn them, for she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon. And look, a greater than Solomon is here. The men of Nineveh shall rise up in the judgment with this generation and condemn it, for they repented at the preaching of Jonah. And look, a greater than Jonah is here. And no one, when he has lit a lamp, puts it in a hidden place or on a basket, but on a lampstand, that those who come in shall see the light. The lamp of the body is the eye. Therefore, when your eye is good, all your body also is enlightened. But when your eye is evil, your body also is darkened. See to it, therefore, that the light which is in you is not darkness. If then all your body is enlightened, having no part dark, all shall be enlightened, as when the bright shining of a lamp gives you light. And as he spoke, a certain Pharisee asked him to dine with him. So he went in and sat down to eat. And when the Pharisee saw it, he marveled that he did not first wash before dinner. And the master said to him, Now you Pharisees make the outside of the cup and dish clean, but your inward part is filled with greed and wickedness. Mindless ones, did not he who made the outside make the inside also? But give in kindness of that which is within, and see, all are clean to you. But woe to you, Pharisees, because you tithe the mint and the root and every plant, and pass by the right ruling and the love of Elohim. These you should have done, without leaving the others undone. Woe to you, Pharisees, because you love the best seats in the congregations and the greetings in the marketplaces. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you are like the unseen tombs, and the men walking over them do not know. And one of those learned in the Torah answering said to him, Teacher, when you say this, you insult us too. And he said, Woe to you also, you learned in the Torah, because you load men with burdens hard to bear, and you yourselves do not touch the burdens with one of your fingers. Woe to you, because you build the tombs of the prophets, and your fathers killed them. So you bear witness that you approve of the works of your fathers, because they indeed killed them, and you build their tombs. And because of this the wisdom of Elohim said, I shall send them prophets and emissaries, and some of them they shall kill and persecute, so that the blood of all the prophets which was shed from the foundation of the world shall be required of this generation, from the blood of Abel to the blood of Zachariah, who perished between the altar and the dwelling place. Yea, I say to you, it shall be required of this generation. Woe to you, learn in the Torah, because you took away the key of knowledge. You did not enter in yourselves, and those who were entering in you hindered. And as he was saying this to them, the scribes and the Pharisees began to oppose him fiercely and to draw him out on many subjects, watching him and seeking to catch him in whatever he says, so as to accuse him. Luke chapter 12. Meanwhile, when an innumerable crowd of people had gathered together, so that they trampled one another, he began to say to his taught ones, First, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. And whatever is concealed shall be revealed, and whatever is hidden shall be known. So whatever you have said in the dark shall be heard in the light, and what you have spoken in the ear in inner rooms shall be proclaimed on the housetops. But I say to you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body, and after that are unable to do any more. But I shall show you whom you should fear. Fear the one who, after killing, possesses authority to cast into Gehenna. Yea, I say to you, fear him. Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 copper coins? And not one of them is forgotten before Elohim. But even the hairs of your head have all been numbered. Do not fear. You are worth more than many sparrows. And I say to you, every one who confesses me before men, the son of Adam shall also confess him before the messengers of Elohim. But he that has denied me before men shall be denied before the messengers of Elohim. And every one who shall speak a word against the son of Adam, it shall be forgiven him. But to him who has blasphemed against the set-apart Spirit, it shall not be forgiven. And when they bring you to the congregations and rulers and authorities, do not worry about how or what you should answer or what you should say. For the set-apart Spirit shall teach you in that very hour what you should say. And everyone from the crowd said to him, Teacher, speak to my brother to divide the inheritance with me. But he said to him, Man, who made me a judge or divider over you? And he said to them, Mind and beware of greed, because one's life does not consist in the excess of his possessions. He then spoke a parable to them, saying, The land of a certain rich man yielded well, and he was reasoning within himself, saying, What shall I do, because I have no room to store my crops? And he said, I am going to do this, pull down my storehouses, and build greater, and store all my crops and my goods there. Then say to myself, Life, you have many goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, rejoice. But Elohim said to him, You mindless one, this night your life shall be demanded from you, and who shall own what you have prepared? So is he who is storing up treasure for himself, and is not rich toward Elohim. And he said to his taught ones, For this reason I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you shall eat, nor about the body, what you shall put on. The life is more than the food, and the body is more than the clothing. Look at the ravens, for they neither sow nor reap, which have neither storehouse nor granary, and Elohim feeds them. How much more valuable are you than the birds? And which of you by worrying is able to add 1 cubit to his lifespan? If then you are unable to do the least, why do you worry about the rest? Look at the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And I say to you, even Shalomah, in all his esteem, was not dressed like one of these. And if Elohim so clothes the grass which today exists in the field and tomorrow is thrown into the furnace, how much more you, O you of little belief? And do not seek what you shall eat or what you shall drink, and do not keep worrying. For the Gentiles of the world seek all these, and your Father knows that you need these. But seek the reign of Elohim, and all these shall be added to you. Do not fear, little flock, because your Father did delight to give you the rain. Sell your possessions and give in kindness. Make yourselves purses which do not grow old, a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief does come near, nor moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart shall be also. Let your loins be girded, and your lamps burning, and be like men waiting for their master, when he shall return from the wedding, that when he comes and knocks, they open to him immediately. Blessed are those servants whom the master, when he comes, shall find watching. Truly I say to you that he shall gird himself and make them sit down to eat, and shall come and serve them. And if he comes in the second watch or in the third watch and find them so, blessed are those servants. And know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief comes, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken in two. And you then, be ready, for the Son of Adam is coming at an hour you do not expect. And Kepha said to him, Master, do you speak this parable to us or also to all? And the master said, Who then is the trustworthy and wise manager, whom his master shall appoint over his household to give the portion of food in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his master shall find so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you that he shall appoint him over all his possessions. But if that servant says in his heart, My master's delaying his coming, and begins to beat the male servants and female servants, and to eat and drink and be drunk, the master of that servant shall come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour that he does not know, and shall cut him in two, and appoint his portion with the unbelievers. And that servant who knew his master's desire, and did not prepare, nor did according to his desire, shall be beaten with many stripes. But he who did not know, yet did what deserved flogging, shall be beaten with few. And everyone to whom much is given, from him much shall be demanded. And to whom much has been entrusted, from him much more shall be asked. I came to send fire on the earth, and how I wished it were already kindled. But I have an immersion to be immersed with, and how distressed I am until it is accomplished. Do you think that I came to give peace on earth? I say to you, no, but rather division. For from now on 5 in one house shall be divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. Father shall be divided against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And he also said to the crowds, when you see a cloud rising out of the west, immediately you say, a storm is coming, and so it is. And when you see the south wind blow, you say, there shall be hot weather, and it is. Hypocrites, you know to discern the face of the heaven and of the earth. But how is it you do not discern this time? And why also do you not judge for yourselves what is right? For as you go with your opponent to a ruler, try hard along the way to settle with him, lest he drag you to the judge, and the judge deliver you to the officer, and the officer throw you into prison. I say to you, you shall certainly not leave there until you have paid even the last mite. Luke chapter 13. And some were present at that time, reporting to him about the Galileans whose blood Pilate had mixed with their offerings. And Yahoshua answering said to them, do you think that these Galileans were worse sinners than all other Galileans, because they have suffered like this? I say to you, no. But unless you repent, you shall all perish in the same way. Or those 18 on whom the tower in Shiloh fell and killed them, do you think that they were greater offenders than all other men who dwelt in Jerusalem? I say to you, no. But unless you repent, you shall all perish in the same way. And he spoke this parable. A certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came seeking fruit on it and found none. And he said to the gardener, look, for 3 years I have come seeking fruit on this fig tree and found none. Cut it down. Why does it even make the ground useless? And he answering said to him, Master, leave it this year too, until I dig around it and throw manure. And if indeed it bears fruit, good. But if not so, you shall cut it down. And he was teaching in one of the congregation on the Sabbath. And see, there was a woman having a weakening spirit for 18 years, and was bent over and was unable to straighten up at all. And Yahushua, seeing her, called her near, and said to her, Woman, you are loosed from your weakness. And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was straightened up, and praised Elohim. But the ruler of the congregation, responding much displeased that Yahuwah had healed on the Sabbath, said to the crowd, There are 6 days on which men should work. So come and be healed on them, and not on the Sabbath day. Then the master answered him and said, Hypocrite, does not each one of you on the Sabbath loosen his ox or his donkey from the stall and lead it away to water it? And this one being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has bound, look, for 18 years, should she not be loosed from this bond on the Sabbath? And when he said this, all his opponents were put to shame, and all the crowd rejoiced, for all the splendid works being done by him. Therefore he said, What is the reign of Elohim like, and to what shall I compare it? It is like a mustard seed, which a man took and threw into his garden, and it grew and became a large tree, and the birds of the heavens nested in its branches. And again he said, To what shall I compare the reign of Elohim? It is like leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of flour until it was all leavened. And he was going through the cities and villages, teaching and journeying toward Jerusalem. And someone said to him, Master, are there few who are being saved? And he said to them, Strive to enter through the narrow gate, because many, I say to you, shall seek to enter in, and shall not be able. When once the master of the house has risen up and shut the door, and you begin to stand outside and knock at the door, saying, Master, Master, open for us, and he shall answer and say to you, I do not know you, where you are from, then you shall begin to say, We ate and drank in your presence, and you taught in our streets. But he shall say, I say to you, I do not know you, where you are from. Depart from me, all you workers of unrighteousness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth, when you see Abraham and Ishak and Jacob and all the prophets in the reign of Elohim, and yourselves thrown outside. And they shall come from the east and the west, and from the north and the south, and sit down in the reign of Elohim. And see, there are last who shall be first, and there are first who shall be last. On the same day there came certain Pharisees, saying to him, Go out and go from here, for Herod wishes to kill you. And he said to them, Go, say to that fox, See, I cast out demons and perform healings today and tomorrow, and the third day I shall be perfected. But I have to journey today and tomorrow, and the day following, because it is not fitting for a prophet to perish outside of Jerusalem, killing the prophets and stoning those who are sent to her. How often I wish to gather your children together, the way a hen gathers her chickens under her wings, but you would not. See, your house is left to you, laid waste, and truly I say to you, you shall by no means see me until the time comes when you say, Blessed is he who is coming in the name of Yahuwah. Luke chapter 14. And it came to be, as he went into the house of one of the rulers of the Pharisees to eat bread on the Sabbath, that they were watching him closely. And see, there was a certain man before him suffering from dropsy. And Yahushua responded, spoke to those learned in the Torah and the Pharisees, saying, Is it right to heal on the Sabbath? But they were silent. So taking hold of him, he healed him and let him go. And to them he said, Which of you having a donkey or an ox that has fallen into a pit shall not immediately pull him out on the Sabbath day? And they were unable to answer him regarding these matters. And he spoke a parable to those who were invited. Then he noted how they chose the best places, saying to them, When you are invited by anyone to a wedding feast, do not sit down in the best place, lest one more distinguished than you be invited by him. And he who invited you, and him come and say to you, Give this one place, and then you begin with shame to take the last place. Rather, when you are invited, go and sit down in the last place, so that when he who invited you comes, he shall say to you, Friend, come up higher. Then you shall have esteem in the presence of those who sit at the table with you. For everyone who is exalting himself shall be humbled, and he who is humbling himself shall be exalted. And he also said to him who invited him, When you give a dinner or a supper, do not ask your friends, nor your brothers, nor your relatives, nor your rich neighbors, lest they also invite you back and you be repaid. But when you give a feast, invite poor ones, crippled ones, lame ones, blind ones, and you shall be blessed, because they do not have to repay you, for you shall be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. And when one of those who sat at the table with him heard this, he said to him, Blessed is he who eats bread in the reign of Elohim. But he said to him, A certain man gave a great supper and invited many. And he sent his servant at supper time to say to those who were invited, Come, for all is now ready. But one by one they all began making excuses. The first said to him, I have bought a field, and I need to go and see it. I ask you to have me excused. And another said, I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I am going to try them out. I ask you to have me excused. And another said, I have married a wife, and because of this I am unable to come. And that servant came and reported this to his master. Then the master of the house, being wroth, said to his servant, Hurry out into the streets and lanes of the city, and bring in here the poor and crippled and lame and blind. And the servant said, Master, it is done as you commanded, and still there is room. And the master said to the servant, Go out into the street corners and hedges, and compel them to come in, so that my house is filled. For I say to you that none of those men who were invited shall taste my supper. And large crowds were going with him, and turning, he said to them, If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters and his own life too, he is unable to be my taught one. And whoever does not bear his stake and come after me is unable to be my taught one. For who of you, wishing to build a tower, does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid the foundation and is unable to finish it, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, This man began to build and was unable to finish. Or what sovereign, going to fight against another sovereign, does not sit down first and take counsel whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? And if not, while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks conditions of peace. So then, every one of you who does not give up all that he has is unable to be my taught one. The salt is good, but if the salt becomes tasteless, with what shall it be seasoned? It is not fit for land, nor for manure. They throw it out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Luke chapter 15. Now all the tax collectors and the sinners were coming to him to hear him. And the Pharisees and scribes grumbled, saying, This one receives the sinners and eats with them. And he spoke this parable to them, saying, What man among you, having 100 sheep, and having lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness, and go after the one which is lost until he finds it? And having found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And having come home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost. I say to you that in the same way there shall be more joy in the heaven over one sinner repenting than over 99 righteous ones who need no repentance. Or what woman having 10 silver coins, if she loses one coin, does not light a lamp and sweep the house and seek diligently till she finds it? And having found it, she calls friends and neighbors together, saying, Rejoice with me, for I have found the coin which I lost. I say to you, in the same way there is joy in the presence of the messengers of Elohim over one sinner repenting. And he said, A certain man had 2 sons, and the young of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods fallen to me. And he divided his livelihood between them. And not many days after, the younger son, having gathered all together, went away to a distant country, and there wasted his goods with loose living. And when he had spent all, there arose a severe scarcity of food throughout that land, and he began to be in need. And he went and joined himself to one of the citizens of that country, and he sent him to his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to fill his stomach with the pods which the pigs were eating, and no one gave to him. But having come to himself, he said, How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I am perishing with hunger? Having risen, I shall go to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against the heaven and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. And having risen, he went to his father. And while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was moved with compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against the heaven and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. And bring the fattened calf here and slaughter it, and let us eat and rejoice. Because this son of mine was dead and is alive again, and he was lost and is found. And they began to rejoice. And his oldest son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. And having called one of the servants, he asked what this meant. And he said to him, Your brother has come, and your father has slaughtered the fatted calf, because he received him back in health. And he was wroth and would not go in. So his father came out and pleaded with him. And answering, he said to his father, See, these many years I have been serving you, and I have never transgressed a command of yours. But to me you have never given a young goat, so I could rejoice with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood with whores, you slaughtered the fattened calf for him. Then he said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all I have is yours. And we had to rejoice and be glad, for your brother was dead and is alive, and was lost and is found. Luke chapter 16. And he also said to his taught ones, There was a certain rich man who had a manager, and he was accused to him as wasting his possessions. So having called him, he said to him, What is this I hear about you, giving an account of your management? For you are no longer able to be manager. And the manager said within himself, What shall I do? For my master is taking the managership away from me. I am unable to dig. I am ashamed to beg. I know what I shall do, that when I am removed from the managership, they might receive me into their houses. And calling every one of his master's debtors to him, he said to the first, How much do you owe my master? And he said, 100 measures of oil. And he said to him, Take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. Then to another he said, And how much do you owe? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said to him, Take your bill and write 80. And the master praised the unrighteous manager because he had acted shrewdly, because the sons of this age are more shrewd in their generation than the sons of light. And would I say to you, make friends for yourselves by unrighteous mammon, that when you fail, they shall receive you into everlasting dwellings. He who is trustworthy in what is least is trustworthy also in much, and he who is unrighteous in what is least is unrighteous also in much. If therefore you have not been trustworthy in the unrighteous mammon, who shall entrust to you the true? And if you have not been trustworthy in what is another man's, who shall give you what is your own? No servant is able to serve two masters. For either he shall hate the one and love the other, or else he shall cling to the one and despise the other. You are not able to serve Elohim and Mammon. And the Pharisees who loved silver also heard all this and were sneering at him. So he said to them, You are those who declare yourselves righteous before men, but Elohim knows your hearts, because what is highly thought of among men is an abomination in the sight of Elohim. The Torah and the prophets are unto Yohanan. Since then the reign of Elohim is being announced, and everyone is doing violence upon it. And it is easier for the heaven and the earth to pass away than for one tittle of the Torah to fall. Everyone putting away his wife and marrying another commits adultery. And everyone marrying her who is put away from her husband commits adultery. But there was a certain rich man who used to dress in purple and fine linen, and live luxuriously every day. And there was a certain beggar named Eleazar, being covered with sores, who was placed at his gate. And longing to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table, indeed, even the dogs came and licked his sores. And it came to be that the beggar died, and was carried by the messengers to the bosom of Abraham. And the rich man also died and was buried. And while suffering tortures in the grave, having lifted up his eyes, he saw Abraham far away and Eliezer in his bosom. And crying out, he said, Father Abraham, have compassion on me, and send Eliezer to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am suffering in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that in your life you received your good, and likewise Eliezer the evil, but now he is comforted, and you are suffering. And besides all this, between us and you a great chasm has been set, so that those who wish to pass from here to you are unable, nor do those from there pass to us. And he said, Then I beg you, Father, that you would send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers. Let him warn them, lest they also come to this place of torture. Abraham said to him, They have Moshe and the prophets. Let them hear them. And he said, No, Father Abraham, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they shall repent. But he said to them, If they do not hear Moshe and the prophets, neither would they be persuaded, even if one should rise from the dead. Luke chapter 17. And he said to the taught ones, It is inevitable that stumbling blocks should come, but woe to him through whom they come. It would be better for him if a millstone is put around his neck, and he were thrown into the sea, than that he should cause one of these little ones to stumble. Take heed to yourselves. If your brother sins against you, rebuke him. And if he repents, forgive him. And if he sins against you 7 times in a day, and 7 times in a day comes back to you saying, I repent, you shall forgive him. And the emissary said to the master, Give us more belief. And the master said, If you have belief as a mustard seed, you would say to this mulberry tree, Be pulled up by the roots and be planted in the sea, and it would obey you. But who of you, having a servant plowing or shepherding, would say to him when he has come in from the field, Come immediately and sit down to eat? But would he not rather say to him, Prepare somewhat for my supper, and gird yourself and serve me while I eat and drink, and afterward you shall eat and drink? Would he thank that servant because he did what he was commanded? I think not. So also you, when you have done all that you were commanded, say, We are unworthy servants. We have done what was our duty to do. And it came to be as he went to Jerusalem that he passed through the midst of Shamron and Galilee. And as he was entering into a certain village, he was met by 10 leprous men who stood at a distance. And they lifted up their voices, saying, Yahoshua, Master, have compassion on us. And having seen them, he said to them, Go show yourselves to the priests. And it came to be that as they were going, they were cleansed. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, returned, praising Elohim with a loud voice. And he fell down upon his face at his feet, giving thanks to him. And he was a Shomeronite. And Yahoshua answering said, Were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? Was no one found to return to give praise to Elohim except this foreigner? And he said to him, Rise, go your way, your belief has made you well. And having been asked by the Pharisees when the reign of Elohim would come, he answered them and said, The reign of Elohim does not come with intent watching, nor shall they say, Look here or look there. For look, the reign of Elohim is in your midst. And he said to the taught ones, Days shall come when you shall long to see one of the days of the son of Adam, but you shall not see it. And they shall say to you, Look here, or look there. Do not go after them nor follow. For as the lightning that flashes out of one part under heaven shines to the other part under heaven, so also the Son of Adam shall be in his day. But first he has to suffer much and be rejected by this generation. And as it came to be in the days of Noah, so also shall it be in the days of the Son of Adam. They were eating, they were drinking, they were marrying, they were giving in marriage until the day that Noah went into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. And likewise, as it came to be in the days of Lot, they were eating, they were drinking, they were buying, they were selling, they were planting, they were building. But on the day Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and sulfur from heaven and destroyed all. It shall be the same in the day the Son of Adam is revealed. In that day he who shall be on the housetop, and his goods in the house, let him not come down to take them away. And likewise the one who is in the field, let him not turn back. Remember the wife of Lot. Whoever seeks to save his life shall lose it, and whoever loses his life shall preserve it. I say to you, in that night there shall be two in one bed. The one shall be taken, and the other shall be left. Two shall be grinding together. The one shall be taken, and the other shall be left. Two shall be in the field. The one shall be taken, and the other shall be left. And they answered and said to him, Where, Master? And he said to them, Where the body is, there also the eagles shall be gathered together. Luke chapter 18. And he spoke a parable to them, that they should always pray and not lose heart, saying, In a certain city there was a certain judge, not fearing Elohim, nor regarding man. And a widow was in that city, and she came to him, saying, Do right to me on my adversary. And he would not for a while, but afterward he said within himself, Even if I do not fear Elohim nor regard man, yet because this widow troubles me, I shall do right to her, lest by her continual coming she wears me out. And the master said, Hear what the unrighteous judge said. And shall Elohim not do right by all means to his own chosen ones who are crying out day and night to him and being patient over them? I say to you that he shall do right to them speedily. For when the Son of Adam comes, shall he find a belief on the earth? And he also spoke this parable to some who relied on themselves that they were righteous and looking down on others. 2 men went up to the set-apart place to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and began to pray with himself this way, Elohim, I thank you that I am not like the rest of men, swindlers, unrighteous, adulterers, or even as this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I possess. But the tax collector, standing at a distance, would not even raise his eyes to the heaven, but was beating his breast, saying, Elohim, show favor unto me, a sinner. I say to you, this man went down to his house declared right rather than the other. For everyone who is exalting himself shall be humbled, and he who is humbling himself shall be exalted. And they also brought infants to him to touch them, but his taught ones, seeing it, rebuked them. But Yahoshua called them to him and said, Let the little children come to me, and do not forbid them, for of such is the reign of Elohim. Truly I say to you, whoever does not receive the reign of Elohim as a little child shall certainly not enter into it. And a certain ruler asked him, saying, Good teacher, what shall I do to inherit everlasting life? So Yahushua said to him, Why do you call me good? No one is good except one Elohim. You know the commands. Do not commit adultery. Do not murder. Do not steal. Do not bear false witness. Respect your father and your mother. And he said, All these I have watched over from my youth. And hearing this, Yahoshua said to him, Yet one you lack. Sell all that you have and distribute to the poor, and you shall have treasure in heaven. And come, follow me. But when he heard this, he became intensely sad, for he was extremely rich. And when Yahushua saw that he became intensely sad, he said, How hard it is for those who have riches to enter into the reign of Elohim. For it is easier for a camel to enter through a needle's eye than for a rich man to enter into the reign of Elohim. And those who heard it said, And who is able to be saved? And he said, What is impossible with men is possible with Elohim. And Kepha said, See, we have left all and followed you. And he said to them, Truly I say to you, there is no one who has left house or parents or brothers or wife or children for the sake of the reign of Elohim, who shall not receive many times more in this present time and in the age to come everlasting life. And taking the 12 aside, he said to them, See, we are going up to Jerusalem, and all that have been written by the prophets about the son of Adam shall be accomplished. For he shall be delivered up to the Gentiles, and shall be mocked, and insulted, and spat upon. And having flogged him, they shall kill him. And on the 3rd day he shall rise again. But they understood none of this. And this word was hidden from them, and they did not know what was being said. And it came to be that as he was coming near Jericho, that a certain blind man was sitting by the way begging. And hearing a crowd passing by, he asked what it meant. And they reported to him that Yahushua of Nazareth was passing by. And he cried out, saying, Yahushua, son of David, have compassion on me. And those going before were rebuking him that he should be silent. But he was crying out much more, Son of David, have compassion on me. And Yahushua stopped and commanded him to be brought to him. And when he had come near, he asked him, saying, What do you wish me to do for you? And he said, Master, to receive my sight. And Yahushua said to him, Receive your sight. Your belief has saved you. And immediately he received his sight, and was following him, praising Elohim. And all the people, seeing it, gave praise to Elohim. Luke chapter 19. And having entered, he was passing through Jericho, and see a man called Zacchaeus, and he was a chief tax collector, and he was rich, and he was seeking to see who Yahushua was, but was unable because of the crowd, for he was small in stature. And having run ahead, he climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, because he was about to pass by. And as Yahushua came to the place, he looked up and saw him, and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I have to stay at your house today. And he hurried and came down, and received him rejoicing. And seeing it, they all grumbled, saying, He has gone in to stay with a man who is a sinner. But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the master, Look, master, I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have taken whatever from anyone by false accusation, I repay fourfold. And Yahushua said to him, Today deliverance has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Adam has come to seek and to save what was lost. And as they were hearing this, he spoke another parable, because he was near Jerusalem. And they thought the reign of Elohim was about to be manifested straightway. He therefore said, A certain nobleman went to a distant country to receive for himself a rain and to return. And calling 10 of his servants, he gave them 10 minas, and said to them, Trade until I come. But his subjects were hating him, and sent a delegation after him to say, we do not wish this one to reign over us. And it came to be, when he came back, having received the rain, that he sent for these servants to whom he had given the silver, in order to know what each had gained by trading. And the first came, saying, Master, your mina has earned 10 minas. And he said to him, Well done, good servant. Because you were trustworthy in a small matter, have authority over 10 cities. And the second came, saying, Master, your mina has earned 5 minas. And he said to him also, And you be over 5 cities. And another came, saying, Master, here is your mina, which I kept laid up in a handkerchief. For I was afraid of you, because you are a hard man. You take up what you did not lay down, and reap what you did not sow. And he said to him, Out of your own mouth I shall judge you, you wicked servant. You knew that I was a hard man, taking up what I did not lay down, and reaping what I did not sow. Why did you not put the silver in the bank, that when I come I could have collected it with interest? Then he said to those who stood by, Take the mina from him, and give it to him who possesses 10 minas. But they said to him, Master, he already possesses 10 minas. For I say to you, that to everyone who possesses shall be given, and from him who does not possess, even that he possess shall be taken away from him. But those enemies of mine who did not wish me to reign over them, bring them here and slay them before me. And having said this, he went on ahead, going up to Jerusalem. And it came to be, when he came near to Bethphage and Bethania at the mountain of Olives, that he sent 2 of his taught ones, saying, Go into the village opposite you, in which as you enter you shall find a coat tied, on which no one has ever sat. Loosen it and bring it here. And if any one ask you, Why do you loosen it? Thus you shall say to him, Because the master has need of it. And those who were sent away and found it as he had said to them. And as they were loosening the coat, the owners of it said to him, Why do you loosen the coat? And they said, The master needs it. So they brought it to Yahoshua. And throwing their garments on the coat, they set Yahoshua on it. And as he went, they were spreading their garments on the way. And as he was coming near, already at the descent of the Mount of Olives, the entire crowd of the taught ones began to praise Elohim, rejoicing with a loud voice for all the miracles they had seen, saying, Blessed is the sovereign who is coming in the name of Yahowah, peace in heaven and esteem in the highest. And some of the Pharisees from the crowd said to him, Teacher, rebuke your taught ones. But he answering said to them, I say to you, that if these shall be silent, the stones would cry out. And as he came near, he saw the city and wept over it, saying, If you only knew even today the matters for your peace, but now they are hidden from your eyes. Because days shall come upon you when your enemies shall build a rampart around you and surround you and press you on all sides, and dash you to the ground and your children within you. And they shall not leave in you one stone upon another, because you did not know the time of your visitation. And having entered into the set-apart place, he began to drive out those selling and buying in it, saying to them, It has been written, My house is a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers. And he was teaching daily in the set-apart place. But the chief priests and the scribes and the leaders of the people were seeking to destroy him. But they did not find what they might do, for all the people were hanging upon him, listening. Luke chapter 20. And it came to be on one of those days, as he was teaching the people in the set-apart place and bringing the good news, that the chief priests and the scribes, together with the elders, came up and spoke to him, saying, Say to us, by what authority are you doing these? Or who is he who gave you this authority? And he answering said to them, I shall ask you one question too, and answer me. The immersion of Yohanan, was it from heaven or from men? And they debated among themselves, saying, If we say from heaven, he shall say, Then why did you not believe him? But if we say from men, all the people shall stone us, for they are persuaded that Yohanan was a prophet. And they answered that they did not know from where it was. And Yahoshua said to them, Neither do I say to you by what authority I do these. And he began to speak this parable to the people. A certain man planted a vineyard, and leased it to farmers, and went away for a long time. And as harvest time, he sent a servant to the farmers to give him some of the fruit of the vineyard. But the farmers beat him and sent him away empty-handed. And again he sent another servant, and they beat him too, and maltreated him and sent him away empty-handed. And again he sent a third, and they wounded him too, and cast him out. And the owner of the vineyard said, What shall I do? I shall send my son, the beloved, they might respect him when they see him. But when the farmers saw him, they reasoned among themselves, saying, This is the heir. Come, let us kill him, so that the inheritance becomes ours. And they cast him out of the vineyard and killed him. What then shall the owner of the vineyard do to them? He shall come and destroy those farmers and give the vineyard to others. And having heard, they said, Let it not be. But he looked at them and said, What then is this that has been written? The stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. Everyone who falls on that stone shall be broken, but on whomever it falls, he shall be pulverized. And the chief priests and the scribes sought to lay hands on him in the same hour, but they feared the people, for they knew that he had spoken this parable against them. And keeping a close watch on him, they sent spies who pretended to be righteous to catch him in a word, in order to deliver him to the rule and to the authority of the governor. So they asked him, saying, Teacher, we know that you say and teach rightly, and you are not partial to any, but teach the way of Elohim truly. Is it right for us to pay taxes to Caesar or not? But perceiving their craftiness, he said to them, Why do you try me? Show me a silver piece, whose likeness and inscription does it have? And they answered and said, Caesar's. And he said to them, Then give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to Elohim what is Elohim's. And they were unable to catch him in a saying in the presence of the people, and marveling at his answer, they were silent. And some of the Sadducees who deny that there is a resurrection came to him and asked him, saying, Teacher, Moshe wrote to us that if a man's brother dies having a wife, and he dies childless, his brother should take his wife and raise up offspring for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers, and the first took a wife and died childless. The second took her as wife, and he died childless. And the third took her, and in the same way the 7 also, and they left no children and died. And last of all, the woman died too. At the resurrection then, whose wife does she become? For the 7 had her as wife. And Yahushua answering said to them, The sons of this age marry and are given in marriage, but those who are counted worthy of attaining that age and the resurrection from the dead neither marry, nor are they given in marriage. For neither is it possible for them to die any more, because they are like messengers and are sons of Elohim, being sons of the resurrection. But that the dead are raised, even Moshe showed at the bush when he called Yahuwah the Elohim of Abraham, and the Elohim of Yishak, and the Elohim of Yaakov. Now he is not the Elohim of the dead, but of the living, for all live to him. And some of the scribes answering said, Teacher, you have spoken well. And they were not bold enough to question him any more. And he said to them, How do they say that the Messiah is the son of David? For David himself said in the book of Psalms, Yahuwah said to my master, Sit at my right hand, until I make your enemies a footstool of your feet. David then said, calls him Master, how is he then his son? And in the hearing of all the people, he said to his taught ones, Beware of the scribes, who like to walk in long robes and love greetings in the marketplaces, and the best seats in the congregation, and the best places at feasts, who devour widows' houses, and for a show make long prayers. They shall receive greater judgment. Luke chapter 21. And looking up, he saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw a certain poor widow putting in 2 mites. And he said, Truly I say to you, that this poor widow has put in more than all. For all these out of their excess have put in offerings for Elohim, but she out of her poverty has put in all that she had to live on. And as some were speaking about the set-apart place, that it was adorned with goodly stones and gifts, he said, These that you see, the days are coming in which not one stone shall be left upon another that shall not be thrown down. And they asked him, saying, Teacher, but when shall this be? And what is the sign when this is about to take place? And he said, See that you are not led astray, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am, and the time is near. Then do not go after them. But when you hear of fightings and unrest, do not be alarmed, for these have to take place first, but the end is not immediately. Then he said to them, Nation shall rise against nation, and reign against reign. And there shall be great earthquakes in various places, and scarcities of food, and deadly diseases. And there shall be horrors and great signs from heaven. But before all this, they shall lay their hands on you, and persecute you, delivering you up to the congregations and prisons, and be brought before sovereigns and rulers for my name's sake. And it shall turn out to you for a witness. Therefore, resolve in your hearts not to premeditate on what to answer. For I shall give you a mouth and wisdom which all your adversaries shall not be able to refute or resist. And you shall also be betrayed by parents and brothers and relatives and friends, and some of you shall be put to death. And you shall be hated by all because of my name. But not a hair of your head shall be lost at all. Possess your lives by your endurance. And when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its laying waste is near. Then let those in Yehudah flee to the mountains, and let those who are in the midst of her go out, and let not those who are in the fields enter her, because these are days of vengeance, to fill all that have been written. And woe to those who are pregnant, and to those who are nursing children in those days. For there shall be great distress in the earth, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trampled underfoot by the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles are filled. And there shall be signs in the sun and moon and stars, and on the earth anxiety of nations, and bewilderment at the roaring of the sea and agitation, men fainting from fear and the expectation of what is coming on the earth. For the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then they shall see the Son of Adam coming in a cloud with power and much esteem. And when these matters begin to take place, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. And he spoke a parable to them. Look at the fig tree and all the trees. When they have already budded, observing it, you shall know for yourselves that summer is near. So you also, when you see these matters take place, know that the reign of Elohim is near. Truly I say to you, this generation shall by no means pass away till all shall have taken place. The heaven and the earth shall pass away, but my words shall by no means pass away. And take heed to yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down by gluttony and drunkenness and worries of this life, and that day come on you suddenly. For it shall come as a snare on all those dwelling on the face of all the earth. Watch then at all times, and pray that you be counted worthy to escape all this about to take place, and to stand before the Son of Adam. And he was teaching in the set-apart place by day, but at night he went out and stayed on the mountain of Olives. And early in the morning all the people came to him in the set-apart place to hear him. Luke chapter 22. And the festival of unleavened bread drew near, which is called Passover. And the chief priests and the scribes were seeking how to kill him, for they feared the people. And Satan entered into Yahudah, who was called man from Kiriath, who was numbered among the 12. And he went and spoke with the chief priests and captains, how he might deliver him up to them. And they were glad, and agreed to give him silver. And he promised and was seeking an occasion to deliver him up to them, away from the crowd. And the day of unleavened bread came, when the Passover had to be slaughtered. And he sent Kepha and Yohanan, saying, Go and prepare the Passover for us to eat. And they said to him, Where do you wish us to prepare? And he said to them, See, as you enter into the city, a man shall meet you carrying a jar of water. Follow him into the house he enters. And you shall say to the master of the house, The teacher says to you, Where is the guest room, where I might eat the Passover with my taught ones? And he shall show you a large furnished upper room. Prepare it there. And going, they found it as he had said to them, and they prepared the Passover. And when the hour had come, he sat down, and the 12 emissaries with him. And he said to them, With desire I have desired to eat this Passover with you before my suffering. For I say to you, I shall certainly not eat of it again, until it is filled in the reign of Elohim. And taking the cup, giving thanks, he said, Take this and divide it among yourselves. For I say to you, I shall certainly not drink of the fruit of the vine until the reign of Elohim comes. And taking bread, giving thanks, he broke it and gave it to them, saying, This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Likewise, the cup also after supper, saying, This cup is the renewed covenant in my blood, which is shed for you. But see, the hand of him delivering me up is with me on the table. For indeed the Son of Adam goes as it has been decreed. But woe to that man by whom he is delivered up. And they began to ask among themselves which of them it could be who was about to do this. And there also took place a dispute among them as to which of them seemed to be greater. And he said to them, The sovereigns of the Gentiles rule over them, and those who control them are called workers of good. But not so with you, but let him who is greatest among you be as the youngest, and the leader as one who serves. For who is greater, the one who sits at the table or the one who serves? Is it not the one who sits at the table? But I am in your midst as the one who serves. But you are those who have remained with me in my trials. And I covenant for you, as my Father covenanted for me, a reign, to eat and drink at my table in my reign, and to sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And the master says, Shimon, Shimon, see, Satan has asked for you to sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for you that your belief should not fail. And when you have turned, strengthen your brothers. And he said to him, Master, I am prepared to go with you, both to prison and to death. And he said, I say to you, Kepha, the cock shall not crow at all today, until you have denied 3 times that you know me. And he said to them, When I sent you without purse and bag and sandals, did you lack any? And they said, None at all. And he said to them, But now let him who has a purse take it, likewise also a bag, and let him who has no sword sell his garment and buy one. For I say to you that what has been written has yet to be accomplished in me. And he was reckoned with lawless ones, for that which refers to me has an end too. And they said, Master, look, here are 2 swords. But he said to them, That is enough. And coming out, he went to the Mount of Olives according to usage, and his taught ones also followed him. And coming to the place, he said to them, Pray that you do not enter into trial. And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw, and falling on his knees he was praying, saying, Father, if it be your counsel, remove this cup from me. Yet not my desire, but let yours be done. And there appeared a messenger from heaven to him, strengthening him. And being in agony, he was praying more earnestly. And his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. And rising up from prayer and coming to his taught ones, he found them sleeping from grief. And he said to them, Why do you sleep? Rise and pray, lest you enter into trial. And while he was still speaking, see, a crowd, and he who was called Yahudah, one of the 12, was going before them and came near to Yahoshua to kiss him. And Yahoshua said to him, Yahudah, do you deliver up the son of Adam with a kiss? And those around him, seeing what was about to take place, said to him, Master, shall we strike with a sword? And one of them struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his right ear. But Yahushua answering said, Allow it this far. And touching his ear, he healed him. And Yahushua said to those who had come against him, the chief priests and captains of the set-apart place and the elders, Have you come out as against a robber with swords and clubs? While I was with you daily in the set-apart place, you did not lay hands on me, but this is your hour and the authority of darkness. And having seized him, they led him and brought him to the house of the high priest, and Kepha was following at a distance. And when they had lit a fire in the midst of the courtyard and sat down together, Kepha sat among them. And a certain servant girl, seeing him as he sat by the fire, looked intently at him and said, And this one was with him. But he denied him, saying, Woman, I do not know him. And after a little while another saw him and said, You are one of them too. But Kepha said, Man, I am not. And about an hour later another insisted, saying, Truly this one was with him too, for he is a Galilean too. But Kepha said, Man, I do not know what you are saying. And immediately while he was still speaking, a cock crowed. And the master turned and looked at Kepha. And Kepha remembered the word of the master, how he had said to him, Before a cock crows, you shall deny me 3 times. And Kepha went out and wept bitterly. And the men who were holding Yahushua were mocking him, beating him. And having blindfolded him, they were striking him on the face and were asking him, saying, Prophesy, who is it that struck you? And they said to him much more blaspheming. And when it became day, the elders of the people, both chief priests and scribes, came together, and they led him into their council, saying, If you are the Messiah, say it to us. And he said to them, If I say to you, you will not believe it at all. And if I asked you, you would not answer me at all. From now on, the son of Adam shall sit on the right hand of the power of Elohim. And they all said, Are you then the son of Elohim? And he said to them, You say that I am. And they said, Why do we need further witness? For we heard it ourselves from his mouth. Luke chapter 23. And the entire assembly of them, having risen up, led him to Pilate, and began to accuse him, saying, We found this one perverting the nation, and forbidding to pay taxes to Caesar, saying that he himself is Messiah, a sovereign. And Pilate asked him, saying, Are you the sovereign of the Yahudim? And answering him, he said, You said it. And Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowd, I find no guilt in this man. But they were insisting, saying, He stirs up the people, teaching through all Yehudah, beginning from Galilee unto this place. And when Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked if the man were a Galilean. And when he learned that he was under the authority of Herods, he sent him to Herods, who was also in Jerusalem in those days. And seeing Yahoshua, Herods rejoiced greatly. For a long time he had wished to see him, because he had heard much about him, and was anticipating to see some miracle done by him, and was questioning him with many words, but he gave him no answer. And the chief priests and the scribes stood, accusing him intensely. And Herods with his soldiers made light of him, and mocked him, dressing him in a splendid robe, and sent him back to Pilate. And on that day Pilate and Herods became friends with each other, for before that they had been at enmity with each other. And Pilate, having called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, said to them, You brought this man to me as one who turns away the people. And look, I have examined him in your presence, and have found no guilt in this man regarding the charges which you make against him. And neither did Herods, for I sent you back to him, and look, he has done none at all deserving death. Having disciplined him, then I shall release him. For he had to release one to them at the festival. And they cried out all together, saying, Away with this one, and release to us Barabbas, who had been thrown into prison for a certain uprising made in the city, and for murder. Wishing to release Yahoshua, then Pilate appealed to them again. But they were calling out, saying, Impale, impale him. And he said to them the third time, Why, what evil has he done? I have found no reason for death in him. Having disciplined him, then I shall release him. But with loud voices they insisted, asking for him to be impaled. And the voices of these men and of the chief priests were prevailing. And Pilate pronounced sentence that what they asked should be done. And he released the one they asked for, who for uprising and murder had been thrown into prison. But he handed Yahushua over to their wishes. And as they led him away, they laid hold of a certain man, Shimon, a Cyrenian, who was coming from the field, and they put the stake on him to bear it behind Yahushua. And a great number of the people were following him, and women who also were mourning and lamenting him. But Yahushua, turning to them, said, Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For look, days are coming in which they shall say, Blessed are the barren and wombs that never bore, and the breasts which never nursed. Then they shall begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. Because if they do this to the green tree, what is going to be done to the dry tree? And two others also, evildoers, were led with him to be put to death. And when they had come to the place called Golgotha, they impaled him there. And the evildoers, one on the right and the other on the left. And Yahushua said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. And they divided his garments and cast lots. And the people were standing, looking on, and the rulers also were sneering with them, saying, He saved others, let him save himself, if he is the Messiah, the chosen of Elohim. And the soldiers were mocking him too, coming and offering him sour wine, and saying, If you are the sovereign of the Yahudim, save yourself. And there was also an inscription written over him in letters of Greek and Roman and Hebrew, This is the sovereign of the Yahudim. And one of the evildoers who were hanged was speaking evil of him, saying, "If you are the Messiah, save yourself and us." But the other, responding, rebuked him, saying, "Do you not even fear Elohim, since you are under the same judgment? And we indeed rightly so, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. But this one has done no wrong." And he said to Yahushua, "Master, remember me when you come into your reign." And Yahushua said to him, "Truly, I say to you today, you shall be with me in paradise." And it was now about the 6th hour, and darkness came over all the land until the 9th hour. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the dwelling place was torn in two. And crying out with a loud voice, Yahushua said, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And having said this, he breathed his last. And the captain, seeing what took place, praised Elohim, saying, "Truly this man was righteous." And when all the crowds who had gathered to that sight saw what took place, they beat their breasts and went away. And all those who knew him, and the women who followed him from Galilee, stood at a distance watching this. And see, a man named Joseph, a council member, a good and righteous man. He was not agreeing with their counsel and deed, from Ramathaim, a city of the Yahudim, who himself was also waiting for the reign of Elohim. He, going to Pilate, asked for the body of Yahushua, and taking it down, he wrapped it in linen and laid it in a tomb hewed out of the rock, where no one was yet laid. And it was preparation day, and the Sabbath was approaching. And the women who had come with him from Galilee followed after, and saw the tomb and how his body was laid. And having returned, they prepared spices and perfumes, and they rested on the Sabbath according to the command. Luke chapter 24. And on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they came to the tomb, bringing the spices which they had prepared. And they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. And having entered, they did not find the body of the Master Yahushua. And it came to be, as they were perplexed about this, that see, 2 men stood by them in glittering garments. And becoming frightened and bowing their faces to the earth, these said to them, "Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here, but has been raised up. Remember how he spoke to you when he was still in Galilee, saying, the Son of Adam has to be delivered into the hands of sinners and be impaled, and the 3rd day rise again?" And they remembered his words. And having returned from the tomb, they reported all this to the 11 and to all the rest. And it was Miriam from Magdala, and Johanan, and Miriam, the mother of Jacob, and the rest with them, who told this to the emissaries. And their words appeared to them to be nonsense, and they did not believe them. But Kepha arose and ran to the tomb, and stooping down, he saw the linen wrappings lying by themselves. And he went away home, marveling at what took place. And see, 2 of them were going that same day to a village called Emmaus, which was 12 kilometers from Jerusalem. And they were talking to each other of all this which had taken place. And it came to be, as they were talking and reasoning, that Yahushua himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were restrained, so that they did not know him. And he said to them, "What are these words you are exchanging with each other as you are walking, and you are sad?" And the one whose name was Cleophas, answering, said to him, "Are you the lone visitor in Jerusalem, who does not know what took place in it these days?" And he said to them, "What?" And they said to him, "Concerning Yahushua of Nazareth, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before Elohim and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned to death and impaled him. We, however, were expecting that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. But besides all this, today is the third day since these matters took place. But certain women of ours who arrived at the tomb early also astonished us. When they did not find his body, they came saying that they had also seen a vision of messengers who said he was alive. And some of those with us went to the tomb and found it, as also the women had said, but they did not see him. And he said to them, O thoughtless ones, and slow of heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. Was it not necessary for the Messiah to suffer these and to enter into his esteem? And beginning at Moshe and all the prophets, he was explaining to them in all the scriptures the matters concerning himself. And they approached the village where they were going, and he seemed to be going on, but they urged him strongly, saying, Stay with us, for it is toward evening, and the day has declined. And he went in to stay with them. And it came to be, when he sat at the table with them, having taken the bread, he blessed, and having broken, he was given it to them. And their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. And they said to each other, Was not our heart burning within us as he was speaking to us on the way, and as he was opening the scriptures to us? And rising up that same hour, they returned to Jerusalem, and found the 11, and those who were with them gathered together, saying, The Master was truly raised, and has appeared to Shimon. And they related what took place on the way, and how he was recognized by them in the breaking of the bread. And as they were saying this, Yahoshua himself stood in the midst of them, and said to them, Peace to you. And being startled and frightened, they thought they had seen a spirit. And he said to them, Why are you troubled? And why do doubts arise in your hearts? See my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Handle me and see, for a spirit does not have flesh and bones, as you see I have. And saying this, he showed them his hands and his feet. And while they were still not believing for joy and marveling, he said to them, Have you any food here? And they gave him a piece of broiled fish and some honeycomb. And taking it, he ate in their presence. And he said to them, These are the words which I spoke to you while I was still with you, that all have to be filled that were written in the Torah, Moshe, and the prophets, and the Psalms concerning me. Then he opened their minds to understand the scriptures, and said to them, Thus it has been written, and so it was necessary for the Messiah to suffer and to rise again from the dead the third day, and that repentance and forgiveness of sins should be proclaimed in his name to all nations, beginning at Jerusalem. And you are witnesses of these matters. And see, I am sending the promise of my Father upon you, but you are to remain in the city of Jerusalem until you are clothed with power from on high. And he led them out as far as Bethania, and lifting up his hands he blessed them. And it came to be, while he was blessing them, that he was parted from them, and was taken up into the heaven. And they, having bowed down to him, returned to Jerusalem with great joy, and were continually in this set-apart place, praising and blessing Elohim.